People of this blessed nation, entrust your faith in me with a clear mandate to make our country better, to revamp our economy, restore our security within our borders, revitalize our floundering industrial sector, boost agricultural production, increase national productivity, and set our country on an irreversible path. I am well aware that for some time now, the conversations and debate have centered on the rising cost, high inflation, which is now above 28%, and the unacceptable high underemployment rate. From the boardroom at the broad streets in Lagos to the main streets of Kano and Nembe Creeks in Bayelsa, I hear the groans of Nigerians who work hard every day to provide for themselves and their families. I'm not oblivious of the expressed and sometimes honest expectations of my fellow citizens. I know for a fact that some of our compatriots are even asking if this is how our administration wants to renew their hope.
Polarized the polity, an inaugural presidential pronouncement that sent shockwaves into the economy.
The presidential election will be remembered as perhaps the most keenly contested in the country's recent history. Considering the vote difference among the top three parties, the All Progressives Congress APC, the People's Democratic Party PDP, and the Labour Party LP. The All Progressives Congress retained power at the centre, with the emergence of Senator Bola Tinubu as winner of the presidential election. Election Observation Mission in June released a report which described the elections as ensuring real-time publication and access to election results as a product of a poorly done desk job.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the...
This is the first time Nigeria has a thoroughbred politician as president.
Well, again, I'm not sure I understand what you mean, but because he's an accountant, at least as far as we know, and a businessman. A title is a title. You're right. It was keenly contested. It also shows a number of shortcomings in the system, and that we still have a long way to go in our journey to nationhood. And we've seen also what I call the politicians coming in various forms of messianic packaging. And almost 8 months after, we're also having to ask ourselves, so what? It's one thing to, people were already complaining about the Buhari government and the hardship that, people believed, we had been experienced, the nepotism, the, nativism, and we are looking forward to something better. Then we have to sit back later and isolate a number of metrics, take each metric at a time and say, on this metric, is this government better than what we had?
Some argue that it might be too soon, just, almost 8 months. Isn't that too soon?
Are you trying to tell me that 8 months is not sufficiently long for you to be able to decipher a direction on some fronts? I mean, people can make that argument. I'm not saying, after all, people start to judge government after 100 days. By 100 days in office, the whole essence is that it's giving you enough time for you to lay down a path on which you're going. So if we keep up making excuses, the politicians, the way they work, by the second year, they are preparing for second term. Or, in fact, already the journey for 2027 has started. So we can't keep making excuses for them. That's exactly what people did for Buhari. Even the people that call themselves the Buharis, they kept telling you it was, when people complained it was taking too long to constitute a cabinet. You say, wait, be patient. After 1 year, it was just up to the 7th year that even the ardent supporters started to sing a different song. By then it's late. So I think it will behoove on all of us to keep the government on its toes, interrogate every policy. That's the only way we can bring out the best in them. And we take it one at a time. For example, the signature policy that's removing subsidy, my personal opinion is that he spent these 8 months trying to manage the consequences of not having thought through that. And you can see that virtually every other thing that has been done, 90% of every other thing, has been more like looking for headlines or managing the after effects.
Professor Adibe, this decision of removing subsidy is one that has stayed in the polity for so long, and many will say there was none that had the political will to do it. So President Tinubu came in and he thought the best thing to do was, even though it had been said before him by the previous administration that he's going to go at a certain time, but he came in and used those words, he's gone. Well, some will say that is being decisive as a president.
That is there's also one thing, there's a difference between being decisive. You have to be decisive, and then you must have put in a number of policy measures. You had 3 months from the time you were elected. So all those times you isolated yourself in France and others, there should be policy measures. For example, then all we saw was, you bring an education policy, we interrogate it and found out that it wasn't implementable. Where is the conditional cash transfer? I found out it was not properly thought through. Let me consider many governments do start on a wobbly start. But what I'm saying that it's part of our responsibilities, and not your responsibility as a media person, that we should interrogate them, hold them, say, look, this, what's happening? So that if you don't do that, we become part of the, if it fails, we become part of the failure. See, I like the communication mode, because when you show metrics, it must be in comparison to what? In comparison to the previous administration. You can see the current Minister for Information and National Orientation is quite, he uses very fine language, and the same thing with presidential spokesperson. Contrast them with what you had under Buhari, with Lai Mohammed, with Femi Adesina, with Garuba Shehu. I can see that one of the reasons why the government had not gotten so many knocks is because of this subtle communication, what we call soft power approach, where they are not combative. Even when they disagree with you, say, okay, I can see the point you're making, but that's what the Mr. President thinks. So you come in with this, looking for a fight, and the person you're taking the fight to deflates your will to fight. Enemy without a fight is the highest acme of skill, is the highest demonstration of skill. So that system of communication, PR, means that people to knock them are restrained, because people that will give them the fight, they think they don't have anybody to give them a fight. In contrast to Femi Adesina, who came around and started talking about wellers. Well, you called for a fight, they gave you a fight. And it was a brutal fight in such a way that you thought they were going to come and fight on your top. And the whole president was being called Jibril of Sudan, and some people even believed that. That was their own mode of fighting, and others fighting. So I think I'll give him credit. I'll give credit, although I am not happy that somebody like Abayo Onanuga, who proclaimed himself a Yoruba irredentist, who played a very, infamous role in the weaponization of ethnicity during the election, especially in Lagos. Other than that, I'll give them credit. I also feel that, the image of the vice, I'm not being disrespectful, the image of the First Lady and the Vice President were not really that spectacular before the election. But you can see that the way they've approached their work with compassion and all this, I think they are beginning to soften up. Even the President himself, his communication style, on the symbolic level, people thought, blue and all this, getting better in terms of speaking. Apart from those symbolic things, the real things still need to be done. It's very difficult for you to look at, for example, a potentially good policy, which is subsidizing transport. You come and announce it about 4 days to the Christmas, and then giving the impression that it's one of those things that you're looking for headlines and the decision taken on the feet. And then you look at the impact assessment, and they said 128 people benefited. That tells you something. And then again, when that was being announced, it was Alake, the Minister for Solid Minerals, while the Minister for Transport was there, and Minister for Information. you ask yourself, what was the subtext in Alake giving this, telling the people there? Is that one of two things? Either to say, well, I am closer to the epicenter of power, or this policy originated from me. These are some of the optics that I believe the government should be also looking at. As you said, there are still potential signs. We are told that Dangote refinery is coming on stream. The Port Harcourt one is mechanically completed and all this. Hopefully, and the others coming on stream at the end of 2024. If all goes well, it is possible that there should be some moderate, what the experts are saying, not crashing of price, but some, some reduction in the price of fuel, which probably again will impact on the demand for foreign currency. That's I hope. So we see that as a potential,
What legacy would you say INEC, is leaving Nigerians, from this general elections and, off-cycle elections we had in 2023?
I think I've said this even from 2019. INEC cannot deliver anything now because it has legitimacy crisis. The first thing that should have been done is for Professor Mahmoud Yakubu to go. I mean, in climes where honor means anything, even if you feel that you've done your best, to the extent that international and local observers have condemned, heavily criticized the conduct of the election, the best thing you should do is to step aside. His life doesn't need to depend on it. You step aside for the sake of the integrity of that institution. And for as long as it remains, I don't think anybody will believe that they will get anything from INEC. And it was also a mistake on the part of the government when they said, I can understand why they said it, that INEC has conducted the best election. I think they were trying to say it in the context of trying to legitimize their declaration as president-elect. But the consequence is that it doesn't give you room to say we are going to embark on further electoral reform, because you said they did a perfect job.
But this is the first time we're using the Electoral Act of 2022 in a general election, based on the amendments that we've had.
Well, Prof, before you go into that, I think we have Senator Abaribe with us now. Senator Abaribe, we do know that technology has kept you out of this conversation for a while, but if you can hear us, this matter of the elections of 2023, yes. What legacy are we looking at towards 2024? Seeing that this is the first time the Electoral Act of 2022 was used, and there are 2 more elections to go in 2024.
I don't know whether you can hear me very well now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I think what is going to happen is that there must be, and we will just have to amend that Electoral Act and remove the human element from it. Because all that happened was simple. In the presidential elections, somebody switched off the presidential portal, and that completely spoiled everything about the presidential elections. In the subsequent gubernatorial elections, people literally seized the ballot papers and the beavers and the final result sheets and uploaded whatever they wanted on it, which means that that human element gap is what we need to clear.
Senator Abaribe,
that's all we have to do about
if I may come in here, you said something there that's quite significant. You said someone switched up the presidential portal. Do you have evidence of this? How did you know that?
INEC itself said they had a glitch. What glitch? On the same time, the same day, the same moment that the results for the senatorial and House of Rep results were also uploaded. There was no glitch on that one. So when somebody tells you that there was a glitch on the presidential portal, how could you believe such thing?
But the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the last 7 or 8 months is characterized by mixed emotions. Mixed emotions because there are good times and there are bad times. Let me start with the good times. What I mean, the positive in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration in the past 8 months is what I have been hearing from his mouth at least. One is that he said, we asked for this job and you can blame us. We are determined to work, we will get to work and no excuses. To me, that is positive because I hardly hear leaders say something like that. Secondly, when he was confronted by certain things that were not working, he said, we're working hard, we will try our best, that we asked for the job. So this acceptance of responsibility to me is a positive sign, at least. So let me go to the other part of the emotions, the negative. You see, in the past 8 years, before these 7 months, Nigerians had to endure the leadership and administration of All Progressives Congress, in which they were told to be hopeful and to be patient, and they waited for 8 years and have not seen anything. Now we are hearing New Year, Christmas messaging, telling Nigerians to be patient, and to me that is a bad message. A bad message because, one, in the whole of this world, apart from the United States of America, I read an article somewhere, there is no any other country that defeated or is defeating the spirit of the Nigerian people in terms of patriotism in every facet of their lives. When you look at science and technology, you look at Nigerians at the top. When you look at entertainment, you see Burna Boy, Davido, Wizkid, you see them up ahead. If you look at education, you see the records Nigerians are breaking everywhere. Even in the administration of justice, judges in civilized worlds are coming. People in the hierarchy of power in government around the world. And this is the best way citizens can demonstrate their patriotism, that they have the willingness to work, and that if the opportunities are created, they will present their country in the big brightness of the light. What is actually left is the responsibility of the government, sadly. So all of this speech about a Nigeria should be patient is what the government needs to be speaking to itself. Why? Because if you look at the last 7, 8 months, Nigerians were thrown into deeper stress, deeper problems. And let me even tell you, last week, there was an annual program in Yaba where the psychiatric hospital in Yaba reported over 100% intake of people with mental problems. This is due to hardship. You have seen in the last 7 months how people are jumping to the lagoons, how people are shooting and killing themselves because of the hopelessness of the situation that Nigerians have gone into. 2 things accounted for that. Some of the problems President Tinubu did not create, right? Nigerians knew it. That's why in the election they were looking for solution. He came up with the message that he's going to renew their hope. Whatever happens, he became the president of Nigeria. What Nigerians expected was to begin to see measures, steps, decisions, and actions that will commence the amelioration of the hardship that they were confronted. Instead, the government came up with 2 policies that created the mess that we're in. One is the policy of removal of subsidy, and 2, the floating of the naira. These 2 policies are not bad in themselves, but they were ill-timed and ill-executed without a thorough and broad-based plan to cushion the effect. Because when the subsidy was removed, these are the things that happened to the common man in Nigeria. Immediately, the prices of items in the market went up. And by November last month, the food inflation is about 34.2%. The general inflation is 28.2%. This was the result of the removal of subsidy. Now, so transportation has gone up, food has gone up. Even in the private sector, rather than increasing the salary of people, they had to retrench a lot of them in order to compete. So Nigerians actually went down because their income has not gone up. Meanwhile, the cost of living has gone up. Then they floated the naira, which now affected 90% of the youth, especially those who are schooling. They could no longer access Forex at the official rate, and wherever they were, immediately the value of whatever they had for schooling went down to 30%. This is fact. So whether you like President Tinubu or you don't like him, these facts cannot change. These facts are happening. And what is the posture of government that is asking for patience? Extravagancy, mismanagement, and lack of accountability. I don't need to go further, but for you to look at the trip to Dubai is one of them. For you to look at the splashing of the money to buy SUV for legislators is another. You don't see it anywhere in the world. You also look at the way and manner in which recovered money from looters are not accounted to the Nigerian people. Okay. These are facts. These are the things confronting us as a country. So how do Nigerians come in to be patient when Nigerians for the past 8 years and 8 months have actually demonstrated patience? That's why there are no people on the street, no riot, no breaking of law and order. What more can you ask for the Nigerian people, from the Nigerian people? You see, when people talk about be patient and wait, you have to look at the time frame within which the public officer himself is expected to execute his work. The president has just been voted into a term of 4 years. He's 8 months into the term, which constitutes 31.8% of the total time that he has. He has less than 70% of the time in government. When is that going to happen? 2, when President Buhari took over in 2015, it was the same language. Nigerians patiently followed. Today, tomorrow, they finish the first term, they enter the second term. When there is a fundamental problem with policy, time is irrelevant. 30 years, it cannot work. Most economics in Nigeria, and I'm glad Mr. Onje is an economist, let him challenge it. You look at budget, Price Water Cuba, you look at Riwani, most economics that I have listened to, their analysis on the budget of the president, with which he's expected to execute the agenda, they have faltered it flat out. Now, let me tell you this. The policy that you said you want to change. Now, for the economics, talk about long-term and short-term. Every planning has 3 stages: immediate, mid-term, and long-term. What Nigerian people are crying because of this policy direction are matters that fall within the immediate, which is called intervention. For example, when you took out fuel subsidy, Nigerian people knew that you are going to be making about 9 trillion every month just by not giving the subsidy. And the president said the reason why he was taking out the subsidy is because the subsidy had always ended in the pockets of few people. He wanted Nigerian people to feel the impact. So what happens to the 9 trillion naira? For the past 8 months that they took out the subsidy, have you seen them providing cushioning effect that impact on those consequences of those policies? Because the consequences affect transportation, it affected feeding, healthcare, it affected every facet of life. Now, apart from the 2 billion given to the governors, for which most of them gave to their cronies and people, some even brought religious inclination into it, what more has the government done that generated the impact? There are some places who apply this kind of economic model. They will tell you when you do that, because you already saved money, not you are looking for money coming, you ought to have increased the salaries of workers by, say, if for transportation, by removing subsidy, an average worker is going to spend extra 15,000 in a month. Then maybe in feeding, because of rises of items, it's going to spend extra 5,000, meaning 20. You look at other areas, you put them together, impact it into a salary. Do you need a long term to be able to do that? Secondly, they said the reason they are saving the money is so they can invest in infrastructure. In the past 8 months, tell me one infrastructure project that was laid on ground. Meanwhile, every month we're saving 9 trillion. This is in addition to the multiples of millions in naira, in pound, in dollars that are being recovered from looters and people who looted the treasury in the last administration. Tell me one program on ground that has impacted on the lives of the common people. There is no healthcare improvement in any capacity. So when you talk about long-term plan, you are talking, let's say, for example, if you are constructing a road from Lagos to Ibadan, you will say it is going to take 2 years before it will construct. I think people should see construction people on the side. Now, what about those areas for which the money has already been saved and you need to then release it to impact? In fact, even the planning and the implementation of these policies have been faulted. Let me take you to just the one of 4 days ago. They gave out subsidy to people traveling for Christmas, Lagos, blah, 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 blah. Have you seen the implementation? Less than 7% got impacted by that. A lot of people didn't get the money. Didn't get to access it. Up till the day that the implementation was to start, these same bosses and companies that are saying, we're still giving it at the already. So there will come a time where we'll interrogate implementation. But I am talking about intervention. Intervention is not a mid-term. Intervention is not a long-term. Intervention is immediate. What is the plan and the policy of the government? Meanwhile, Why I say that Nigerian people are more patient than the politicians is that, meanwhile, on the part of government, look at the trip to Dubai and look at how much waste that was made. The average SUV for the lawmaker that costs about 150 or 60 million. You have 3 senators, for example, in a state. If you multiply 160 by 3 and devote this money to the 3 constituency in that state, you can imagine how much it will go. Nobody's looking at that. The cost of government has been enlarged and increased. So we see Nigeria saying we have seen the movie before. We know where we're coming from. We want to see deliverables. We are tired of English, mathematics, economics, science, and technology. We want to see practical, doable. And the government needs to start by conducting itself. Most of the people appointed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have no competence, have no capacity, have no foresight. Only less than 5% of his ministers are actually working.
Yeah,
hello. I want to especially welcome you to 2024, and this is the update of the political and the economic, generally the happenings in Nigeria, and especially what concerns the people and the government of Nigeria. And that government is led by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. 2023 was a funny one, so I want to look back 2023 and see if there is hope for the common man for the 2024 that we are already in. Congratulations, we made it. We are glad. Happy New Year to every one of us. We are happy that we are in 2024 already. But the question is, we are going to look at what the 7 months has been like, and government is promising a whole lot. Keep patient. Don't forget, that was what Buhari did to Nigeria. It just came in. Let us endure. At the end of the day, the political, the economy will bastardize in Nigeria, and we can't wait. And that is why we are going to be bringing you this kind of update, so that Nigerians will know what is ahead and what they are expecting. And at the end of the day, they will not blame anybody that I was never told. No, you were warned, you were told, you were updated. So I don't want to speak against anybody, but we are going to be working with the facts on ground, ranging from economy, ranging from the security, ranging from the political stability and all of that, politics, economy, and insecurity. So those are some of the things we are going to be looking at. And the person charged with this responsibility is the #1 man in Nigeria, which is President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. So we are going to look at that, and we are going to look at the suffering. You and I know that Nigerians, I have been through a lot, and I know that all my people have been through a lot. Even you watching this, you have been through a lot. They say we should have patience. We are having patience. But while we are having patience, we need to keep it in mind, and we need to remind ourselves what we are passing through, so that when time comes, we will hold our leader responsible. That's what we are doing. Let's watch as we keep the record, so that at the end of the day, we can really account for our country, Nigeria.